perhaps fully know what we'll never fully
in progress.
we'll never fully get to know truth, arguably, because it's such a large topic and it's all subject to values and viewpoints. But it helps us get to the truth of a matter and get to reality and understanding, so we can develop policy and action and improve the way we conduct ourselves and our lives and our society. It's a way of helping with, in social sense, in medical and scientific sense, it's how we can use resources for conduct of medicine and health, about the conduct of industry and manufacture. It's a search for meaning, it's a search for knowing, understanding why variables act with each other and impact on each other. And long-term impact, that's a key word here, long-term impact. It's a study of impact longer-term change. Impact, very key word, that impact. It's a systematic inquiry. And by that, I mean that there's a system in place in which we inquire into a matter, into which we investigate a matter. It's systematic in terms of the research question, the research proposal, the tools that we use, such as surveys, questionnaires, and the computers that we are now using every day, how we can use Excel spreadsheets, for example. There's a system in place that can help us with this inquiry and that first point, investigation. It's a system, and a system is something in which variables interact with each other to produce something. The best example in my mind is an economy. That's because my background is economics and I'm interested in how the economy functions. So an economy is a very good example of a system, and we're part of every day, all of our lives. It's disciplined inquiry. It's disciplined in that it requires a lot of concentrated effort in getting information and in getting data and doing some analysis of the data and manipulating the data. It's a very long process. It requires a lot of discipline, and it's based on disciplines from here at universities and colleges and life experience. It's empirical and evidence-based. And by that, I mean, it's what we see. It's what we have as information. Just like that first dot point, investigation. A police officer or police lieutenant, detective investigates a matter based on what they see and the questions they ask and the answers they're given and the circumstances and the environment. It's empirical. Empirical comes from the Greek god of Empiricus, who was based a lot of his philosophy on what he saw. And therefore, it's evidence-based, like the legal system is heavily evidence-based in terms of arriving at a judgment, conviction or no conviction. So that's what research broadly encompasses. Now, this is a very large topic, and I only have this lecture to talk about it, so I'll talk about it at a reasonably high level, not too much depth. But there's a lot of information to get through. There are three main types or strategies of research. Three main types or strategies of research. First is quantitative research, experimental testing, and this deals a lot with data. I'll come to this more later. Experimental testing about before and after, pre-test and post-test examination of an issue. Qualitative research is the lived experience. It's the lived experience of you and I, of us as humans in our day-to-day lives, from when we are young through to your age at present, through your working life, when you come to my age, and what you've experienced in life and how it's shaped your views and values. And then there's mixed methods, which is a combination of the first two dot points, quantitative and qualitative methods. a combination of those two dot points. They're quantitative and qualitative. The ones we're concentrating on today is this one, qualitative research, the lived experience. And by the lived experience, I mean the experience of humans as they progress through their lives and the events and happenings that shape their views and values. Quantitative, just briefly, I won't go into this too much. Quantitative research is experiment testing. It's experiment testing about before an event occurs and after an event occurs, and examining what happens and why. So we're measuring facts. It's based mostly entirely on statistics, really numbers. And the researcher is detached. And by that, I mean the researcher is not involved with the research subjects. He or she sort of stands back and gathers data and information, but is not involved in subjects that they are studying. This will become clearer later. But the researcher here is detached. A lot of their research can be done in the field, but a lot of the data can be worked on their laptop in their office. It's not really involved in the field. And this will become more apparent later. Qualitative research is the lived experience of you and I as we progress through lives, as I mentioned earlier, and how it shapes our lives. It gives meaning. It gives meaning to culture. I've been living in Indonesia now for 2 years, and I understand Indonesian culture much more than I did before I arrived. And I know the methods and the way of life here in Indonesia. So being here, for me, has been a form of qualitative research, qualitative understanding of values. I know the importance of religion, for example, to Indonesians. It's very important. I understand the way of life, the importance of religious festival of Ramadan. So me being here is my own experience of qualitative research. With qualitative research, also, the researcher is involved. The researcher is involved. Now, by this, I mean the researcher is involved in the village setting there, as you can see in the pictures, or they're involved in the subjects that they are examining. They are a participant and they are an observer. They are they are both times, mostly both. And I use a village example there because I'm interested in rural development, but researcher is involved in urban setting like Jakarta or Yogyakarta or Surabaya, could be involved in large settings, or they could be involved in desa kecil. And I have an interest in rural, regional village development. So it's my personal interest. So here the researcher is involved. They're very connected, close to the subjects they are studying. Mixed methods is a combination of the two that I've just been talking about. It's a very rich form of data that's provided. It's also a good form of what we say triangulate. It's a form of testing the results of quantitative methods against qualitative. What did we find quantitatively? And what did we find in terms of qualitative? And do they match? Do they tell a similar story? And if not, why not? We may need to go back and re-examine. So mixed methods is a combination of the two. And it's becoming more popular to use this method, mixed methods. So qualitative research in more detail, just in more depth. What is qualitative research? Anyone like to say? Anyone like to comment on what they might have seen in terms of qualitative research or research about lives and experiences? Like you might read Time magazine or National Geographic or other magazines. That's a form of, they're very good examples of qualitative research, especially something like National Geographic, which shows good stories about lives of people here in Asia, Africa, Europe, my country, Australia. That's a very good form of getting to understand lives in other countries. Are people familiar with magazines such as periodicals such as National Geographic and say Time magazine. And anyone like to comment? Hello? Okay, are you there?
Sir, someone has been
Okay, qualitative research.
the qualitative research involves collecting and analyzing non-numerical
Non-numerical data, yes, that's very good to understand concepts, opinions. It can be used to gather in-depth insights, generate. That's very good. Yes, very good contribution by a very good contribution there. Thank you. Qualitative research, as the name suggests, it's quality. It's around the quality of life, quality of existence. If you're living in a village, what is your quality of life in terms of access to clean water? What is your access to education? What is your ability to get to and from the city for an education? What's the quality of your existence? So the name there, qualitative, it suggests and does point to, and does mean a study of quality of existence. Quantitative, as the name points to, is a study of quantity. This now we're talking about the quality of existence. Quality of existence. It's social realism. And by that, I mean, we researchers mean that it's a study of society at the real level. It's not one that's fiction. It's not one that's fictionalized or contrived or made up. It's a study of what really exists in society, the society that you live in, that you grew up in, that you now live in. It's a study of social. Social relates to people. Social relates to interactions of people among ourselves, among our schools, in our community, and in our health system. It's a study of life situation, where we are situated in life in terms of the village we live in or grew up in terms of the city we now live, or now work and study. It's a study of where we are situated in life and how we're dealing and managing and improving and advancing our lives in the environment we live in. It's people in context. As an extension of that, it's a people in context. By context, I mean, it's a very important word, context, in research. That gives meaning. Context is the interaction of all the players and agents and interrelationships. Context is very important understanding. It's like when I learned Bahasa Indonesia, many times I studied language in terms of context, examples of going shopping or sending a letter or ordering a bijak. I love riding a bijak here in Yogyakarta. It's a matter of circumstances that gives, then by extension, gives meaning to culture, the cultures that we live in, to understand why we behave and conduct ourselves the way we do. For me, living here in Yogyakarta, it's been a wonderful experience of opening my view on another culture. If you come to my country, Australia, which I hope you do, you'll see how we live our culture, our lives, in terms of the way we conduct ourselves. Basically similar, but the methods are different. Qualitative research is a natural and authentic way of research. It's natural in that we are examining people where they live and where they work and how they travel to work and how they interact with family and their religion and their sporting facilities. It's authentic. It's very real. It's very true. It's social realism. That's the second dot point. So it's very true to life, as we say in English. It's very true to what we're seeing. Very true to what we're seeing. It's exploratory in that we have an open mind, in that we explore issues in the setting that we're examining and interested in. And we attempt to find description of what we're seeing and behaviours that we're observing, and how this can impact on how a proposed policy or a proposed development, a road, a freeway, a dam, how it can impact on those that live close to where a change is being proposed. So we're really trying to understand people at the people level, at the community social level. It goes back to that social realism, that second dot point. So it's very descriptive and it provides good information. It's empathetic understanding. And by that, I mean that it's understanding of a person's viewpoints and experiences. We really have an understanding of the circumstances they live in, the difficulties they face day to day in day-to-day living, the challenges they have in traveling to and from places. It's really an understanding, empathetic understanding of fellow humanity. It's not really sympathetic. That's another emotion. Sympathetic is an understanding of suffering that people have. Empathetic is more to do with the lived experience. And in qualitative research, just finally on that dot point, the researcher is involved, as I mentioned earlier. If I undertake qualitative research in a village or a city, I'm involved in that village, or I'm involved in that city or that kampung or that precinct. I'm there observing and sometimes possibly participating to understand people's lives and how they conduct their lives, to help me understand the impact of a new policy, of a new freeway, of a new road system, or a new system that could be implemented or is being proposed. So the researcher is very much there and experiencing and witnessing, watching, looking, observing. As a participant and as an observer, or as an observer and a participant. So they've got various strategies. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you have any questions. So we have various strategies to undertake qualitative research. The most prominent are these four that you see on screen now, the most prominent strategies: case study, ethnography, grounded theory, and action research. In case studies, that's really a small study to explore an issue. It's very confined in one area, case study, to explore something, to look into an issue. Ethnography is one of my favorites. Ethnography is really being there in the village or in the kampung or in the city, being a part of that life and observing and participating to understand people's needs and wants, desires, and their day-to-day lives as mothers, fathers, children, villagers, farmers, to really have an understanding and explain how lives are led and conducted, and explain the possible effects and implications of a policy or program or development. The third one there you see is grounded theory. This is more based on data collection. It's grounded in the sense that comes from the ground up. It's developed from the basis of data and what the trends and issues data are telling us. It's somewhat quantitative in nature, by its nature of being data-based. It's one of discovery. We'll come to this more later, as I get more detail on this later. Action research, another one of interest of mine. Action research, action that can lead to solutions. I'll talk about this more later in a few minutes. Any questions? Feel free to ask. So just as a reminder, what is qualitative research? Qualitative research is the lived experience. It's the lived experiences of you and me and everyone in the room, and Sari, who's sitting opposite me, in terms of how we progress through life, how we deal with challenges, how we deal with needs, how we deal with day-to-day life, and how we deal with planning for our futures. Qualitative experience gives cultural meaning. Culture, by the word culture, is the way of doing something, the way of, we cultivate land, we turn the land for soil and growth of food. So do with society. We learn how we turn our lives, we transform our lives from child to young adolescent to adult, and furthering our own lives. And the researcher is involved. The researcher is there, witnessing, observing, taking part. So that's a reminder of what qualitative research is. The first strategy I mentioned earlier is case studies. A case study is an empirical study, as you can see there on the screen, and a real life context. It's a very confined type of study. It's what the researchers describe as contained. It's very contained study of a matter in a natural setting, in a bounded sense. It's got boundaries to it. Examples include study of an individual, a small group, a community or organization. Now, you as accounting students might want to undertake a case study of the company that you'll be working for, or the organization that you're working for, and a certain division or branch of that organization. A case study on company restructuring, or a case study on new production methods. Some of you, many of you, I hope all of you will progress through your careers to become senior in your role, and really understand that to implement change in the business organization or a public sector entity organization, to understand what it means in a natural setting, in a bounded setting, a division or a branch, a study of what it means for people of change. A unit of analysis there, we in research call unit of analysis the individuals or people or actions or attributes that we actually study in terms of the effect of a policy on change. And a case study also finally there deals with interactions, settings and incidents. In your case, working in finance and accounting, you might want to really understand how change and reform can affect the settings and the interactions among various branches and divisions, subsidiary outlets in relation to the parent company, or if you have international operations. So it has some relevance to you as accounting graduates. Secondly, ethnography, a favorite of mine. This is, as I mentioned earlier, the participant is involved, the researcher is involved. The researcher observes and is involved in what they're studying. They study it really at the ethnic level. This definition provided by Woolcott. It's a useful one. There are many definitions. This is a useful one I like. Ethnography is a picture of the way of life of some identifiable group of people, to learn about, record, and portray the culture of that group. Okay, that's ethnography. I like this method of research. Let's just take this apart a bit, analyze this a bit further. A picture of a way of life, a culture, cultural meaning that I referred to earlier, cultural meaning about how you hear people everywhere here in Indonesia go about their lives. It's a way of life, a way of culture, how we meet our needs and fulfill our wants. Of a group of people. Me, for example, living here, I observe Indonesian people and how they conduct their lives, how they drive and ride motorbikes, and how they do their shopping, and your commitment to your religion and prayer every day. And then to learn about, record, and portray the culture as the observer sees it. portray the culture as the observer has participated in it, participant observation, to portray and give an understanding of that life. So ethno, the Greek word people or folk, and graphy, to describe something. Ethnography is provides very rich data, and by that we mean it provides a lot of information about how people conduct their lives, how they tend to their children, how they tend to their shopping, go about their daily work and going to and from work. I particularly like, for example, to see the traditional markets here in Yogyakarta. They fascinate me. The Pasar Tradisional, they fascinate me, the traditional markets of shopping and how people go about their shopping and purchasing. That's a really, to me, that provides me with rich understanding of one aspect of our lives, is berbelanja for sayur and daging saps, daging. It's a very good example of experience and to witness and observe people going about their shopping for food. Ethnography is describing culture in a context and setting. Context, as I mentioned earlier, is an area of studying interrelationships among people and agents of society. Ethnography provides insight into cultural meanings and social processes. And by social processes, I mean the conduct of how we relate to each other in the work situation, in the community, in society. It's participant observation, as I mentioned. So the researcher here is really involved. If I go to the traditional market, I'm involved there as a purchaser, as a buyer. I'm involved there in looking and selecting and choosing and thinking, selecting and purchasing and buying. And I'm observing, I'm walking the market, and I'm seeing a lot of how people go about their lives as workers there in the market, preparing food for presentation. I've been to a few traditional markets here in Yogyakarta and enjoyed it very much. It's an understanding of behavior, actions, and events. And again, I go back to that example of the traditional market, the way people conduct themselves, going about choosing and selecting the various food that's on display in the market. Again, a reminder, I'll go back to this reminder, just to remind the basic concepts, basic principles of qualitative research. It's the lived experience, it's cultural meaning, and the researcher is involved. And again, I use the examples of a village, a desa there, because I'm particularly interested in village research and rural development in countries such as Indonesia. Are there any questions so far? Are there any questions? You're very quiet. You're very quiet. I really like to meet you in a lecture theatre. I much prefer to meet you in a lecture theatre than speak online, so we can see face to face. So I hope you're still there, and I hope you're taking notes and enjoying this lecture that I've prepared for you. No questions so far?
Excuse me, sir. There's a question
Oh,
in the comment
chat
box.
box.
Yes.
So
It's
my name is
Adnan. I want to ask,
volume.
does qualitative research have problem boundaries? And if there are limits, how do we researchers make the boundaries of the problem set?
I'm sorry, Denza, I could not hear it very well. Have problem boundaries. Does quality?
Okay. So it's question for Adnan. Does qualitative research have problem boundaries? And if there are limits, how do we researchers make the boundaries of the problem?
The boundaries of the problem, really, if I understand your question correctly, The boundaries of the problem are really limited by the research that we undertake, the research proposal and the research questions. To go back earlier, one of the early stages of research is establishing questions. Establishing questions about what we're going to ask and what problem we are trying to solve or understand. So the boundaries are really set by the research proposal. Problems, we can go back and review the research proposal and maybe make some amendments. There are limits to what we can research into in terms of qualitative research based on time, resources, staff, funding, money. But with the beauty, in a way, the good thing about qualitative research is that as an observer, we can sort of extend the boundaries ourselves by our participation and being there in terms of what we observe and the notes we take and the information we gain. It's a very, as I said earlier, a very good way of getting rich information. But the boundaries are set by a research proposal and the research committee and the ethics that we've been, ethics approval. Getting research ethics approval is very important. Can we morally ask these questions or morally correct in undertaking this research? I hope that answers your question. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Any more questions? Any further questions? I'm happy to answer them. We have another one there in the chat box.
Sir, there's someone
Yes.
asked in the chat box. It's hello, sir. My name is Denada. I want to ask on several questions. The first question is, how can I write a summary of the attached research paper? And the second is, sir, can qualitative method we can use in the multivariate regression, sir?
Good question. That's a very technical question. The research summary, by its nature is a summary, so it should be brief and concise. And the research summary really should summarize very briefly how the research was done and undertaken, and most importantly, what was found, what was discovered. Did it confirm what we suspected? Did we find, make new findings? Did it fill a gap in knowledge? Did it inform us? That's what we're trying to do when we undertake research, is to fill a gap. Something we don't know. We want to find meaning, or we want to update our meaning from previous studies. A summary of the research is not too difficult to do, because it's a summary, it's a collation of what you've done and what you've found from your research. But it's very important that it be concise and very easy for the reader to follow, because they're a very busy person, probably. It provides very good, clear insight and a clear pathway for policy or recommendations, or where we go from here and how we use the data. I hope that answers your question. In terms of qualitative use and multivariate, we can do that, qualitative research with multivariate regression. That would be in a mixed methods approach. The quantitative is providing information in terms of quantity, in terms of statistics, in terms of distributions and standard deviations, and the nature of the sample that we're talking about. There is multivariate regression. That's a very advanced form of statistical analysis. But the qualitative can in a mixed methods approach, can help sort of counter or help reinforce, not so much counter, but reinforce what we're looking at. Can we use quality? Yeah. I hope that answers your question. I'll just answer this other question we have here in the chat box. So can qualitative research use multi-regression? It can in a mixed methods approach. Yes. Yeah. It can. Yes. Yeah. If it's a mixed methods approach, not on its own though, but with support a quantitative approach. Yes. Nabila, what are the weaknesses of qualitative research? Well, the weaknesses of it, I guess, are that it's participant observer observation, that it can be subject to some biases in terms of values and our value judgments. Personally, I find qualitative research a very strong form of giving meaning and understanding, because it's participant observation, it's what's being seen and experienced and felt, it's that empathy that I mentioned earlier, that connection with the subjects. It's really research at ground level, literally sitting on the village, on the ground in the village, or sitting on the streets in the kampung with the people and gaining really good observation insight. One needs to have good observation and note-taking skills. It can be, I guess, subject to leanings and biases, value judgments, but then again, mixed methods approach can help overcome that, counter that. These are very good questions. Thank you for your questions. Which means on the summary we can make as narrow as we can, which it's best not to have too narrow a summary. It's concise, it's to the point, but a summary, usually in reports you have what we call an executive summary. So that goes at the beginning of the report, and that's what the executive will read. The company president or the chairman, the senior staff in the organization will read. They're usually very busy people, and the executive summary is usually 2 or 3 pages in dot point form, that is written for the executive staff members of an organization to give a really brief overview, concise overview of the research and the findings. So it's best not to have a narrow summary. It's best to have a broad summary, concise, and the executive summary is the way to do that. It's commonly known as the executive summary at the beginning of a report. It's written for people who are very busy. You will know that when you move through your careers and you move up into senior positions, you become busier and busier, and you'll find a report on your desk, and it'll be very long and detailed, and with analysis and data. And what you as an executive or senior person in the organization will want is a summary, is a very good detailed summary. And you find that in the executive summary, and it's best not that they're too broad, too narrow. I hope that answers your question. Are there any further questions at this stage? We can come back. There's plenty of time later for questions. Okay, I'll continue on. Grounded theory. This one method is based mainly in data. You can see there on the screen the flow chart. It's theory based on data. It's grounded theory in the sense that the data that we get, and from the ground up, we develop a theory based on what the data are telling us. We gain the data collection, we analyze it, we go back, get more data if we need it, analyze again. It's a repetitive process, and then we eventually come up with a theory or an understanding of variables and context in interaction among those agents and variables I was talking about earlier. It's inductively developed, which means that it's developed from the specific to the general. So we get information about a village or a kampung, and we might be able to somehow extrapolate or extend that to a broader setting. So it's inductive. Action research, the final one. This is a very interesting one. It's commonly used in developing countries for action and change. As a it does have a very practical application, particularly in social impact assessment. Some years ago, I undertook my master's degree, and one subject I undertook was in social impact assessment. And my lecturer, the professor, he did work previously in Africa in this area of research, in action research. And he gained an understanding from African villages in Africa, a particular village in Africa, about the effect of a new water system, or a sanitation system. And he interestingly undertook this. It's also called participatory action research. And that key word there, participation, it's where you as a citizen can take part in the research and provide your views and your input into what you think are the implications of a change. It's participation that is reflection, and by reflection I mean that we look back on our lives and see how we've lived them in the circumstances that we were required to live them, and consider possible future lives that we might lead if a policy or program is implemented, or a new dam is implemented, or a new road is built. And we can take action accordingly. In a democratic society, we can take action to petition government on what we believe are the implications of a proposed development. It's research to solve problems. And as I say, the impact of a new village or freeway. And again, what comes to my mind is the example of my lecturer, professor, in his work in Africa. It's very interesting. He used rocks to display on the ground. Each rock had a certain value, importance in terms of the village's response to questions. They didn't speak English. My professor didn't speak the native language. They communicated in rocks on the ground in terms of demonstrating, illustrating the effects of change in policy and a program. Just in terms of research, any research we undertake, whether it be quantitative or qualitative, or the mixed methods, we need to look at its validity and its reliability. There's no point in undertaking research if it's not telling us, if the answers we get are not valid, if it's not technically constructed well, that gives meaningless answers, gives meaningless data. And reliability we need to look at in terms of how we structure our questions and surveys, that if we do the same survey again and again, we'll give it similar results, which indicates that we have a well-structured survey and tools for analysis and tools for getting information. Validity is important. We need to check whether the information is accurate. Does the construct, that is the survey or questionnaire, and the indicators for what we get, so the indicators around child health or sanitation or mortality, match the truth or reality. Because remember, we're going back to truth and reality. We want to get an understanding of what is real and what is true. We'll never get a full understanding or complete understanding of truth and reality, but over time we will arrive at such. So is it valid? Does it stand up to analysis? Can I get up to the company directors and give my research and convincingly inform them of what we found and how we should proceed from here? And do the findings match reality? Do the findings match what really is there? We can do this through triangulating, which is a form of three-way way of checking our data, quantitative, qualitative, and any other method you want to use to sort of check, are the results becoming consistent? Is there a pattern and trend there? Are we really getting close to the truth and understanding? Although that is difficult to achieve, it takes time, and we get there eventually over time, with over a period of time, given our accumulative knowledge that we gain. Reliability in statistics and research. Do we get the same result each time? Is this method we've used a good one, a correct one? When we step on the scales to measure our weight, same set of scales should give us a similar result each time. Hopefully not putting on weight or losing weight, but the results will tell you reliably what your true weight is. Method, can the method be produced and replicated? That means, do we use the same method in one village and another? Can we use this method in Bantul? Can we also use this method in Gunung Kidul or Kulon Progo or Slaman? There might be different population in Bantul than there is in Slaman, than there is in Gunung Kidul or Parangtritis. Can we use the same method? If not, we need to reconsider the structure, the nature of the method we're using. We cannot use the same method on one area as another because of different populations. Internal reliability is what is the design of the research? Have we really thought enough about the research questions and how we're going to, what data we're going to get and how we get the data, acquire the data? Are our definitions correct? Are our assumptions correct and fair and reasonable? Are the criteria reasonable? This is a very long process. As I said earlier, it's disciplined inquiry. It takes a lot of discipline because there are many steps in the research process in arriving at truth. Arriving at truth is not an easy process. It's a long process. It takes discipline. External reliability relates to generalizability. If I undertake a study in Bantul, can I generalize that? Can I say, well, this is what we found in Bantul, is it the same in Salaman? Is it the same in Gunung Kidul? Is it the same in Magalan? Possibly not, because you have different populations, you have different geography, topography, circumstances. It's very difficult to arrive at generalizability, understandably, because areas are different. Yogyakarta is a different city from Jakarta. Surabaya is a different city from Samarang or Sulawesi and Makassar. So the generalizability you've got to be careful with. It provides some indication, but you can't say that what we found in Yogyakarta also applies in Makassar. It probably won't, because you've got different cultures and different economies. The economy here in Java is bigger and more diverse than that in many other areas of Indonesia. So you can't really generalize safely. You must be very careful when you have findings from research. You can't just say that it's relevant to other areas. And finding in Aceh province or Lampung cannot be really applied to Sumatra because they're different settings, but the same nation, same country, language, currency, religion. But you need to be very careful. It's generalizability. Can we be general about this, the findings? Just coming to a close soon. Qualitative, other methods you can use to support qualitative methods research or analyzing qualitative data. Universities here at universities, you've got many well-trained academics and people who are well-trained in finding meaning and understanding and searching for meaning and understanding. Academics are by their nature experts in their areas of field. The dean of your faculty is an expert in accounting and economics and finance studies and practice, as is the faculty head in medical school or any other faculty here at UME. Research think tanks. Now, think tank is a large body that specialises in gaining understanding of topics. In Australia, we have various think tanks. Well, the Brookings Institution in the United States is one. In Australia, we have the Institute of Public Affairs. Some institutes, think tanks, have a political viewpoint or a political value system. Think tanks are a very good resource of information. Government databases, we're all on a government database somewhere. I am here in Indonesia in terms of my iPhone, my IMEI, my SIM card. I'm on a database in many that we are all on many databases that provide information about society. They can be used to a degree, but there are ethical and privacy issues. There are ethical and privacy issues around that that we need to be very careful of. And we can de-identify the data. We can use the data, but not use names and addresses. I'm just coming to a close soon. I just want to finish up soon now with qualitative research and what it means for you as accounting students, you as future auditors, future company executives, future senior people and staff members. What qualitative research means to you. Now, as an accountant, as someone working in finance and analysis, you're dealing a lot with numbers. You're dealing a lot with incomes and expenses and balance sheets, profit and loss, return on investment. They don't really deal with people as such. It's their very nature. You're dealing with numbers and analysis of finance. But we're all moving to a new age now. We're all moving as time moves on. We're becoming more sophisticated as a human race. Particularly Indonesia, it's a developing country. It's a low middle income country. You are expanding significantly, and this country will be a major force in Southeast Asia in years to come. Change is occurring. Change is inevitable. And one new interesting way of using your qualifications in accounting is possibly by using or employing qualitative researchers. It'll enable you to study people in context. Now, imagine that you're a senior in a company or a firm. You can examine the implications of policy or restructure in terms of the people in your organization and who people you work for. People study your staff members, study the lived experience of your clients and staff. You can see how we're using the concepts I introduced early in the lecture. The lived experience of your clients and your staff, to understand them as fellow humans, not just numbers in a balance sheet or an income statement or numbers on a payroll, but understanding that your organization is made up of people on the front desk, in reception, the manufacturing, the back office. This is a good way to broaden your understanding and ability as professionals in your future, to help give that cultural meaning that I referred to earlier, to help understand the way of life of your staff members. Many of your staff members would travel many long distances to and from work, from their home to their office, the office. They got children to raise and families to raise. Qualitative research can help you as senior finance people to understand your staff members. And that's important. That's important. Remembering that they're not just numbers on a page, on a balance sheet, or profit and loss statement. We provide that empathetic understanding. For example, a company restructure. Provide that understanding of your fellow humans, your fellow work members, and remembering that they are human, that they all have the same needs and wants as you. They have to get out every morning and fulfill their responsibilities as a person, an individual, a father, a mother, raising a family and children. The value of qualitative research generally is to help you as accountants to broaden your knowledge. And that's why I've been asked to give this lecture, which I'm happily doing, to help broaden your knowledge beyond accounting. I remember when I did my undergraduate degree, it was important, compulsory, we had to do a subject outside of the economics faculty to broaden our degree. There was only one subject, one unit, but it was very valuable. I chose American history from memory. So it's very important to broaden your knowledge and of your fellow humanity. And that's what we're looking at here in qualitative research. It's quality of life. I'll just conclude now. Summaries finishing, coming up to summary time. These are the books I used in preparing today's lecture. They're very good. They're in the health and the medicine and health research library, faculty library there. The faculty in health and health sciences. The book there, Creswell, the White Book, Research Design, and Social Research Methods. There are about 3 or 4 copies of each of those books that you can use there in the health library to get an understanding. They're quite technical, but they're worth, I'm sure you'll cope. They're really worth reading. They're very informative. They're two very good books in terms of providing in significant detail a good understanding of social research methods. I enjoyed my time there in the library very much, preparing this class, this presentation, and reading those books. You're probably thinking I need to get a life, but I enjoyed preparing it and reading those books and preparing this class for you. So that's where you can do some reading on it. Of course, there is the internet, the wonderful internet that we're all blessed with. It's a great resource. It's almost infinite, the internet, what it provides us. So in summary, I'll just provide a summary and then we can have some further questions if you wish. We've looked at today qualitative research. What is it? Research types. What is qualitative research? And what are the various research types? We've looked at the various 4 stages of qualitative research: grounded theory, ethnography, case study, and participatory action research. We looked at the importance of validity and reliability. Can we use this data? Can we use this information? Can we confidently use this in company presentations? We've looked at the importance to you in broadening your knowledge and understanding of studies beyond your chosen field of accounting and finance, as all undergraduate students should do, broaden their understanding by doing something like this class today. Hopefully I've illustrated to you the importance of qualitative research to you as students, as future future workers in the finance industry. So I conclude now. I thank you for your time. Sehat selalu dan selamat dan sukses in your studies and your lives in accounting and finance, and hope you'll travel well. I hope you'll travel the world, as I've been fortunate to do, and as I've been fortunate to live here in Indonesia. And I hope you'll have broad and expansive lives. I can provide this presentation to you if you wish. You're welcome to have a copy of this presentation. My thanks go to the faculty for allowing me to present to you. Sari, Bak Sari this morning, and Mas Ray. I thank them for their embassy and technical support. So I'll finish up now and conclude. Are there any further questions or discussion? Oh, something in the chat box?
Sir, ask in the chat. It's from Bunga. I want to ask about the challenge of qualitative research, sir.
Oh, well, there are challenges in everything we do in life, and everything we undertake. Resources and time are limited. There are challenges in qualitative research. That's true. That there are no exceptions. the challenges are many. The challenges are many. It's disciplined research. It takes discipline to gather this data, to formulate a research proposal, to understand what the problem is, the answer that we're trying to, the truth that we're trying to arrive at, or the understanding of reality that we're trying to arrive at. It's difficulty in getting ethics approval. You need ethics to morally conduct research. Can we ask these questions of our units of analysis, our subjects? Can we get funding, money to undertake the research? Is it a good return on investment for our time? Do we have sufficient time to get a really good understanding of what is reality? Do we conduct it in a month or 2 weeks or 6 months? Qualitative research by its nature is a long-term process. It's gaining that rich understanding of lives, of the lived experience. That takes time, that takes money, and that takes resources. It takes patience from committees of management and senior executives who approve the project. The challenges are many, but it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. You're getting an understanding of your fellow humanity. You're getting an understanding of the members of staff in your organization, in your business. They are human. They are producing services, providing services, producing goods for your organization. They're receiving an income, that's true, but they are human. They need to be treated with respect and with understanding and patience. The challenge is, yes, there are challenges, certainly. This is no easy task. It's not challenge free from challenge, no. I hope that answers your question. But this presentation is available, will be available to you, yes, yeah. Any further questions? No further questions, yeah? I'm here, we've got a few more minutes for questions. Some more time for questions. Anyone want to make any comments about what they've seen or heard or learnt this morning, or witnessed or observed, or observation? There's that word, observation. You've all been participants in this lecture, in this class. Do you have any comments on what you've observed about what we've walked through and explored today, this morning? No, you're all very quiet. Malu, yeah.
Or maybe they already understand about the material that you gave to us. And guys, if you have any further question, you can unmute your audio, or you can comment on the chat box below. Okay. Okay. Does anyone have
Yes.
questions, guys?
Pardon? Apa?
No, sir. I'm asking them if they have any question.
Okay, well, maybe if there are no further questions, we might conclude there, or I'll wait a little longer if you have any further questions. But I hope that's given you a good introduction. Just remember that when you work in finance and accounting, that you are dealing with humans as part of your production process. You're dealing with capital, you're dealing with equipment, and you're dealing with humans. And humans are the feet on the ground of your organization in producing the goods and providing the services. They need to be treated with respect, and they need to be treated, have an understanding, get a meaning and understanding of their lives, their needs and wants, and how change and reform can affect them. I've lived through it a few times myself, and it's important that we understand and understand each other and support each other. And qualitative research enables that understanding and real meaning of the social situation. So we might conclude there. There are no further questions. I thank you for your time, and I wish you well, selamat dan sukses, and sukses selalu and belajar keras dan bekerja keras and I wish you well. Thank you for your attention and your very good questions as well. Very good questions. And yeah, thank you.
Okay.
We'll conclude there.
Yes. Okay, so thank you for Mr. James and thank you for the participant who has been asking the questions. And hopefully the material that you gave to us that about qualitative method that you've been break down what is the qualitative method, the stage, and for the answer of the question, hopefully it makes them have a better understanding and it's very insightful that now we are turning to the last agenda, which is closing. As the master of ceremony, I do apologize for any mistakes during this event. And finally, I would like to say thank you. And before leaving this event, please kindly everyone turn on your camera because we want to take a picture. Mas.
Oh.
Okay, guys, maybe you can open your camera, guys. Okay, so we're gonna take the picture in the 1, 2, 3. Okay, once more in 1, 2, 3. Okay, the last one is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining this event and see you on the next general lecture. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Leave the meeting. Thank you. Leave the meeting.